It's Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. Shout out to the Brothership! Mario Luigi! At about 2 hours into the adventure, Mario and Luigi find themselves at Bean Bean Castle, where they find out the evil Cackaletta has laid waits to it. They try to enter the castle. The guards, even after saying their famous names, won't accept anything but the Prince Peasley's gold rose. They meet Lady Lima, who makes them prove they're plumbers by fixing a few pipes. Go figure. But it was Cackaletta in disguise that made them shut down the security to save the actual Lady Lima. Cackaletta got hold of the mighty Beanstar in order to grant all her wishes. But in order to awaken its power, she needed Princess Peach's voice. To make matters worse, the matriarch of the castle was turned into a horrible beast, and the bros have to defeat her to press on. She has massive arms and fires lima beans. The queen is defeated, where we learn she has been affected by a nasty belly black worm. That's where we learn of the cure. The legendary Chocola Reserve, the beverage we were looking for. But in order to get our hands on that particular elixir, we will need to head into Chuckle Hook Woods, with the help of the Queen's Brooch. From there, we head to the entrance of someone's home, the Chateau de Chucklehuck, observing the notable imagery on the doormat. It is there where we learn the secret to make this drink. They want you to believe that you're making soda, but in reality, we're making wine. Chocola fruit are grapes. But first, let's actually see how grape soda is made to compare and contrast the steps. Let's have a quick look at the steps for making Chocola Cola. 1. The main ingredient of Chocola Cola is Chocola fruit, which only grows in Chucklehuck Woods. And there are 3 varieties: red, that is robust; white, which is tangy; and purple, which is refreshing. Funny, the purple grapes in Zelda are refreshing too, and those heal half a heart. While these fruits are sentient, the real-world equivalent exists. Of the middle one, I mean. Literal white grapes can be found, and these are sweet and filled with calcium. I mean, there's white grapes, and then there's white grapes. And the color of the grapes does, in fact, affect flavor. So does their size, as the bigger ones are better suited for the table. They're literally called table grapes. The smaller ones have thicker skins and tend to be sweeter, as they contain more focused amounts of sugar. If red is robust, then that would account for the number of tannins in the fruit, having more than other kinds of grapes. White is sweeter because of the lack of tannins and other bitter-tasting substances, which helps make it tangy. Then there are purple, which are highly aromatic and very sweet with a unique musky flavor. Considering they contain good scents, it would make them refreshing, having juicy, soft, and almost gelatinous green flesh. The purples are green grapes in disguise. 2. Place 1 Chocola fruit in a barrel that has been filled to the brim with savory syrup. What even is savory syrup? The only savory syrup I can think of is maple syrup. But that tends to be the only flavor in drinks. 3. Tell funny jokes to the fruit until it laughs, releasing soda bubbles deep within the brew. 4. Bear in mind that the quality of both the fruit and the jokes will affect the brewing process. First thing to consider when it comes to grape soda is that it was the hardest fruit soda to produce. Grapes are known for their water content, and their flavor don't do well when you apply heat. Why? Because they contain between 80.5% and 82% water, which makes them a hydrating food that can help quench thirst. So then how do we get from grapes to grape soda? Believe it or not, chocolate! Mr. Milton Hershey, bless his sweet tooth heart, championed the technology of cold vacuum evaporation for his powdered chocolate. So they use that same tech with grapes to extract their juice to create a concentrate. I mean, you could just use the classic grape flavorant, methyl and thranolate. Dang, Pokemon Company, you lost out on that portmanteau. To create the same taste, but where's the fun in that? So the step that has one fruit in a barrel doesn't hold water. But perhaps what the Chocola fruit is doing is shaking so hard that it serves as the way to extract its juice without heat from a release of fluids either through tears or fruit sweat, allowing the brewer to get the distinct flavor from the emotion-enhanced water molecules within the juice. Water is an amazing element, just saying. You would normally need a simple syrup, which is just sugar, which is stirred in water, providing there isn't any burning, then cool. And those are used for cocktails as well. But the amount of sugar in the syrup is what determines its overall application. A simple syrup is 1:1, equal parts water and sugar, meaning it has enough sugar in the mixture to be antimicrobial. It's not antifungal, bear in mind, but the amount of sugar sucks out the liquid from the bacteria, dehydrating them. For what is called a rich simple syrup, 2 parts sugar and 1 part water lasts as long as 1:1, but tends to crystallize when refrigerated, and is the most sugar that can dissolve in water. It tends to need sufficient shaking for a thorough mix, as it's very thick. Then there's the USP, or United States Pharmacopoeia, which pertains to the classic adage, "A spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down," making the syrup so concentrated that there's no chance of crystallization, which requires 5 parts sugar to 3 parts water, which was very common at the soda fountains, but more so in pharmaceuticals, as it prevented freezing and helped when they had no means of producing heat. Grape is very common in medicines, in the most delightful way. Next is 3:2, or soda syrup, which is the best for mixing. It's thinner than 2:1, and doesn't have an issue with freezing or crystallization like USP. Reducing the viscosity helps the overall soda mixability, preventing the soda jerk from being seen as a jerk. Last is said to be the best ratio, or 4 parts sugar to 3 parts of water. It's great for us health nuts, as 1 teaspoon of this simple syrup contains a teaspoon of sugar. Depending on where you get your grapes, their acid levels tend to vary. I've heard that the grapes grown in America have a lot of it. Usually sodas are made fizzy with an application of CO2 gas, like what we people and fungi make. But any old liquid can be made carbonated with a good shake, vigorously. It typically takes around 10 to 15 seconds of vigorous shaking in a sealed container, with most of the carbonation occurring within the first few seconds. You have incorporated the gas from the outside of the bottle, but the amount is not enough to hold the fizz for very long. So I'm convinced that the combination of shaking and the Chocola's fruit skin are the key to making sufficient bubbles for the drink. Why? Because on the Chocola fruit is our old friend Saccharomyces cerevisiae, which naturally produces the gas while consuming the sugar in the simple, savory syrup. Yeast have been used to make the delightful fizz for centuries. One recipe uses grains called kefir to activate the Saccharomyces with some raw or brown sugar. Don't put them in water hotter than 85 degrees Fahrenheit or will be a fungal graveyard. We're making a starter, guys! it takes awakening the kefir with warm water for a few days, like 4. Then start feeding them sugar water, and then the grains will start to bloom in 2 or 3 days. But like a fussy baby, during both steps, their containers will need to be to release any excess gas to prevent any unnecessary loss of progress. That liquid is now magic in a bottle. We can add grape juice and let it ferment for a few days, and voila! You have grape soda. So how do we get to wine? The same yeast, taking the long game, making a hard drink with lower alcohol content. Now, let's get fermenting. So when it comes to our beloved brewer's yeast, or baker's yeast,
multi-purpose,
Saccharomyces is favored due to its predictable and vigorous fermentation capabilities. It also has a tolerance of relatively high levels of alcohol and sulfur dioxide as well, as its ability to thrive in normal wine pH, which is between 2.8 and 4. As a comparison, grapes that are unripe typically have a pH of 3.1. The ideal pH level for most grapes is 3.4. Grapes that are too ripe have a pH level of 3.8. Whereas grapes with a pH greater than 4 will have a poor taste and low level of sugar, or they had too much potassium in the soil. In fact, the pH of the juice, or must, another name for grape juice before or during fermentation, affects the taste, sugar or acid balance, and stability of wines. Speaking of taste, it's about time we add another flavor to the party.